And of course, they're speaking to a panel of experts here in studio who are here to help us understand what that exactly is, but also the concerns that consumers should have. So let's begin from the start. Moses, I want to begin with you. And so you've heard what Kenyans in Machakos are saying what artificial intelligence is. So what is it in simple terms?
It's technology that basically mimics or simulates human behavior or human intelligence and allows you to do tasks that typically might have been done by people in the past. It's existed in many forms even before the arrival of the likes of ChatGPT. And of course we have a representative from Google. I always like to use the example of when you have your Google Maps and your phone reminds you to leave a place to get to your meeting on time. That's a form of artificial intelligence. So in many instances we've actually been using it. We just may not have realized that it's actually there.
Mm-hmm. And Agnes, because you're here from Google, talk to us about what that artificial intelligence is and specifically how different people have actually used it with that knowledge, but also help us understand the extent we are at this moment.
So as Moses said, his definition stands. It's simulating human processes. AI has been here for a long time, and it has been used in quite a number of different areas. So, for example, in 2018, Google opened its first AI research lab in Africa. So you can imagine how many years ago we have been doing, actually working on AI. And a lot of the things that we have been developing are to solve for societal challenges. So whether it's predicting locusts, flood forecasting, health AI, right? Things that solve for challenges that are global in nature. I think the excitement right now is, if I could give an example, remember when the computer you had to build a building for a computer, and very few organizations globally had one? We are transitioning from that kind of time to the personal computer, where you all have your laptop and computing is in your hand. That is the equivalent. AI has been there. We have used it in many, many different platforms, be it, as he said, in maps, to drive advertising. You talked about online shopping. All those have been in the back end. Most mobile phones have AI embedded in them, right? The excitement right now is that the consumer, you and I, now have access to it. And we can use it how we want towards ensuring that we become more productive and more efficient in our lives. And that's why there's been such excitement in the last year or two.
Right. And Alice, let me get to you. From the perspective of consumers, why is there still that big challenge of understanding what exactly it is? To an extent that, yes, on a daily basis, we're starting to use certain technologies, some of them touching on AI, but the consumer is not aware what that is. Where is this gap?
Thank you so much for this show. And indeed, as I always tell people, this is when consumers feel that there's a rebirth in them. Before I answer that question, I would like to let consumers know that this is an opportunity for them to learn more about consumer protection, consumer rights, and responsibilities. So this day was first marked in 1983. That is 15th March on 1983, to honor one John Kennedy, who was the president, the 35th president of the United States, and is the only sitting or elected leader that stood up for the rights of consumers. And that's why we are commemorating this day every 15th of every year, every 15th, every month of March every year, so that we are able to see the strides that we've made as consumers. It's very important for consumers to feel appreciated, feel respected. This is a day they need to know that they matter in any ecosystem. And anybody that's coming up with a product like the AI we are talking about, they are they all come up with products having the consumers in mind, meaning that every product is meant for a consumer. Now, answering your question, why is it that consumers have issues? Because most of these developers, remember, first of all, we cannot have AI without data. Secondly, we can't have AI without developers. And number three, you cannot have AI without consumers who are consuming the products of AI. And fourthly, we are supposed to be having AI operating in an ecosystem that is legally appreciated by the users. So why is it that consumers are not ready for it? It's because the developers have not made the information available for consumers to learn, information available for consumers to appreciate the innovations, because we are here to appreciate the innovations because we believe AI is an enabler in many ways, because AI has made us now to understand what is happening in another part of the country, another part of the world. So meaning that if AI is used responsibly, then it acts as an equalizer, and it will help our consumers to learn more and even get more services and products that are useful to them. As we say as consumers, if any service, any product is not safe, then we are supposed to say no to those products. Yes.
Okay. So she mentions, what am I saying? She mentions data, that AI requires data. And even as we continue the phase of introductory issues, talk to us about the concerns that would come, especially when you find some of the big organizations like Google here quite several steps ahead. What are the concerns, especially in the Kenyan context, when it comes to this for data?
Thank you, Sam, for having me on this panel. When it comes to AI, some of the concerns that a consumer would have is one of it is that AI many times uses personal information to train. And many times the consumer will not have been informed that, in fact, the information will be used for repurposing. And when the information is collected, they just fill a form and they will be asked, what do you want this information for? They will not understand. There will be a clause saying it's for repurposing. And the repurposing could be to use it for purposes of training. So that is one of the concerns. So from a data protection perspective, one of the issues that we emphasize is the need for informed consent. It's important to let the consumer know, or what we call data subject in the world of data protection, to understand that the information will be used and what will be the purpose of the information. The other one is many times AI will collect a lot of information. And so the concern would be the use of minimizing how much information is being collected. The other one, of course, would be data security. Many times, of course, when you have a robust database and you have collected so much information, if you've not put in place security measures, if there's a breach of that data, you risk the rights of the data subject. And of course, the other concern would be whether the consumer, and I think Meto has mentioned, whether as they develop projects and new products, are they putting in place data protection by default and by design? Okay. Those are the things that really would be a concern.
Okay. We'll get more details about that, and shortly we'll also be listening to what more Kenyan said about artificial intelligence. But Peter, so the mobile network operator, I mean, you're in our gadgets in terms of the services that you provide. How have you been using AI that we didn't know?
Thank you, Sam, and thank you for calling us for this important debate on AI, because AI has already been democratized. We use AI on a very regular basis, as my co-panelists have said. We are not. I know some of the interview people are not aware, but actually we use it every day. And our own experience is that AI is now much more powerful because we have more data, we have better technology, we have more computing power, and also because customers, in particular, want personalized services. So the way our own experience as Safaricom, because of having data both on the financial services side, but also on the telecommunication side, on the communication side, we can be able to offer services that are more tailored to our customers. We can actually be able to predict areas where customers are at risk, for example, on fraud. We have been able to predict fraud and actually prevent fraud before it occurs, especially when there has been identity theft and so on. We now have a virtual assistant called Zuri, which people interact with without necessarily realizing is actually AI. So when AI is used for good, as my panelists are also saying, it actually can be a very powerful tool for enhancing experience, for coming up with new products, but also allowing us to really drive productivity because you can go to market faster. In terms of how we are using, we are a very we are an organization that is well regulated. I see my two regulators next to me. So I'm unlikely to say anything that will put me in trouble.
Yeah.
But certainly, I think one needs to have great data governance internally, a great team. We have moved our team from our big data team from 7 to 40 now,
right.
Between scientists and also engineers. So having the capability, having the governance, but also having the internal ecosystem that allows you to govern how you use AI is very important.
Data governance, new terms that we learned this evening. Let's listen to some Kenyans on what they think. The question was, what is artificial intelligence? This is what they said.
Okay, so artificial intelligence is how you can make machines think like human beings. Yeah, that's basically the definition of artificial intelligence.
It's just a system, an international system where all programs are kept. Either you can research any information that you want to get from the internet, you can retrieve it from it. Yeah.
It's a new technology that uses machines to get tasks done. Like right now we can even do assignments by ChatGPT, so I think that's a form of AI. Yeah. Hospitals here, they also use AI to make drugs nowadays.
Nitasema ni kama system ambayo inaweza kuwekwa kwa kompyuta na ikadetect ugonjwa katika mwili wa binadamu.
Okay, all right. Different perspectives there. Let me come to you, Director General CA, because at the end of the day, all these issues have to be regulated. How far are we in terms of having a framework that is able to govern that? And what are you seeing from the trends so far?
As an industry regulator, we are alive to the fact that technology is changing and the advancement of society. In 2018, the previous government started a task force that on blockchain and AI. Mm-hmm. And part of the recommendations of the task force was that we should encourage AI development. We should look at its risks, its biases, and also we should do audits so that human beings are not affected. As you are aware, currently we are reviewing our Kenya Information Communication Act and its attendant regulations to be in line with the emerging technologies and societal development.
Right.
So far, we've done rounds of meetings with the public and industry players, and we've submitted our recommendations to the ministry, which will be submitted to the Attorney General and henceforth for forward transmission to Parliament. Basically, reviewing the regulations will enable us incorporate the emerging technology like AI and such like.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Stanley, at the ICT authority, which you're able to even guide in terms of where the country should be heading, what do you think are these areas that Kenyans need to be aware of? Because when you speak here, you hear every industry leader is talking about what they are doing within their own space. But what do we do to ensure that it is more accessible to the consumers themselves, but also they're able to develop it? Because you hear one of the speakers there saying that they're using ChatGPT to do their assignments. Of course, this is open source sort of artificial intelligence. But what are we doing to ensure that there's more awareness, but also more use by the consumers?
Thank you very much, Sam, for having us. First, I must appreciate the comments from the citizens. Indeed, it is clear that most of our citizens actually understand this issue. No wonder our country has quite good levels of digital literacy when we are compared to our peers. Let me say that, first of all, we should look at AI from the basic definition of what intelligence is. Mm-hmm. And, intelligence is just the ability to be able to gather information, knowledge, and make certain decisions based on reason. Now, what AI then does is to augment the human intelligence and amplify it. And this becomes the power of AI, because then you're talking about having multiple, brain power in one place, looking at one set of information from different angles. And then this becomes the power of AI. I think from a consumer perspective and from a citizen perspective, AI has a lot of potential to help us empower our citizens. For example, from a government perspective, when we are delivering services, utilizing AI, we can be able to analyze large amounts of data, analyze what decisions our citizens are making when they're getting government services. And this then goes towards helping us not only improve service delivery, right, but also formulate policies that are forward thinking. The issues addressed around data privacy are a big issue in this space, because what is happening is that in addition to the tools that are being used in AI, getting data from different sources, we are having a situation where consumers are also being misled to do certain things that lead to harm, and some of them leading to actual financial losses when they are online, mm-hmm, through these tools. So we have a responsibility, first of all, to empower the citizens with the knowledge of what this technology brings to them, okay, but also demonstrate the opportunities that are there for them. All right. When you look at any sector, you will see what AI has been able to do. In the medical sector, we can now be able to diagnose disease much faster. We can be able to track patients and so on and so forth. And this, goes towards improving the quality of the lives of the citizens. But I think we have a lot of work to do for us to be able to have the citizens access these technologies, right, and be safe when doing so. Okay. All right. There's still so much to cover, because we need to get to the point of, you're speaking about the government can use the data to generate even how decisions are made and to improve service delivery. But we'll be getting to the question of how exactly do you do that? Because there's certain industries or firms that have been able to do that. But what happens for government to be able to do that, but also private entities in this country? We're taking a short break, but you'll come back with more on this particular question of artificial intelligence and the consumer concerns that you need to be aware of. Stay tuned.
Okay, from my knowledge najua so Netflix wanaitumia, kuna Tesla, kuna Google Translate. Yeah, so inakusaidia tu, ina make it easy for you.
Unapotafuta jambo fulani ama unapokuwa unatafuta kitu, liwe ni uimbaji, liwe ni umeingia kwa page ya mtu, then unapata kwamba kuna mambo ambayo yanatokea ambayo huko Google ambayo iko related na kile ambacho umeweza kugoogle.
Let's say you go and Google something in any platform on social media. It will bring you like other suggestions. Just like you can talk to a human being and ask them, what is this? And then he'll give you like the definition of what you want and give you other more definitions.
All right, Kenyan's take on how AI works, varied opinions. And of course, the panel here will be telling me if they are right or too close or too far. Just before we took a break from this conversation, we are at the point of appreciating that AI is heavy on data, and it is data that drives it. Agnes, talk to us about, because like you say, your organization has been able to, go ahead of many, including, if you listen to the Kenyans, they are speaking, they're talking about some of the services they use from Google. What does it take? Because Kenya has a lot of data, really, and the ICT Authority CEO alludes to that. But what does it take to convert that data to meaningful information that can be used for artificial intelligence to guide on decision making?
Thank you, Sam. Indeed, today I was telling one of my colleagues that if I went to any government ministry and I asked for a document from 1973, it will be found. So the data is there, and we've got tons of data. So what do we need to do to transform that data into AI platforms that then serve us from a productivity standpoint? The first thing we need is something called compute, and compute is just the processing power, right? So the processing power is represented through physical data centers that are located in country. It's also represented through cloud services. Cloud services is just being able to access processors using the internet, right? So that is fundamentally, very basically, what compute is. So you'll always hear the word compute being thrown around when talking about AI. The second thing that we must prepare ourselves for is we must have people. We must have people who are trained and skilled to be able to then take all that data, right, put it through processors, build code that solves for something, because it has to solve for something, even if it's a game, right? Mm-hmm. It solves for entertainment. Put all that information through the processes and be able to solve for productivity and efficiency. So you need compute, you need data sets. Data sets, we need to take all this data that government has and convert it into sets that are consumable, and then people. Now, we talked about data centers, we talked about cloud access through the internet. It then means we need infrastructure. We must have good quality, affordable, and secure internet to be able to run the processes that then work on this. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the skills and some of the things like, for example, now we have a collaboration with Ministry of Education called Experience AI. It's a course that uses DeepMind for basic education, primary school education, actually, on how do we start educating young people on design thinking. You don't need a computer in front of you to learn design thinking. Design thinking is the foundation block for AI. Right?
Yeah.
And then a vibrant ecosystem. Moses and his friends who go out and build and reimagine the landscape that we live in. So whether it's startups, whether it's just developers, a vibrant ecosystem that includes players, right, but also an extremely robust regulatory policy.
And when you talk about that, so what are you looking at in terms of resources, but also time?
So good AI saves time. So we must be able to invest. So you're asking about timelines. How fast can we do this?
Yep.
Now, this now brings up the conversation between the divide. There is between where people are already and where we are as Africa, right? And if you speak with Stanley over here, he'll tell you they've been working overtime to get a lot of organizations to build data centers here in Kenya to provide us that compute. A data center costs a lot of money, hundreds of millions of dollars actually, right? And that is where most first world countries started. We can actually start on the other side.
Okay.
We can actually take a lot of money and invest it in developers, in our young people, for them to get the skills. Once they get the skills, they are able to build AI solutions off clouds. even as we invest in data centers. I know Safaricom is investing quite significantly in data centers in Kenya today, and other organizations. While we wait for those significant investments to happen and get off the ground, we can actually start on the other end.
Okay.
We have amazing developers in Kenya, great talent that can build AI.
Stanley, talk to us about what that would mean for government, and if it is something that government would be willing to do, I mean, going through full throttle to implementing, or it's something that would require more of partnerships?
Indeed, we are very keen to keep up with emerging technologies as a government, and we have already set up the foundational pillars that will help us to achieve a fully digital government. And like Agnes has clearly indicated, if the institutions that keep data and keep it well for a long time is government institutions. So the first thing that we need to do, which we're already doing, is to digitize these government records and put the data in a format that, first of all, is accessible through these technologies, and also a format that can be shared across different platforms. The second thing that we must address ourselves to is the legal and regulatory framework that we must put in place. Before we talk about regulating AI, we must look at the basic framework that is required to support automation and digitization, and giving people access to digital platforms. So we are currently, looking at some of the acts that needs to go in tandem with this. For example, we require a digitization act. That then will help us to shape the framework and the policy and the context under which we digitize. We're also looking at the issues of governance of IDs, because the issue of digital ID then becomes central to digitization.
Okay.
And then on top of that is just closely to what Agnes has talked about.
Right.
We have a lot of data across government that has been built over time, a lot of systems that have been built over time. And most of these systems are sitting in silos. So we have a responsibility to then standardize this information and make sure that it is accessible. Previously we've been talking about consolidation of data. And over time, we have evolved from that, and now we are moving towards standardizing data from where it sits. So we are pushing more of a federated data system that is standard and accessible across board, rather than trying to bring the data together. Then that approach helps us to shorten the time period.
Okay, so I get that. I'm just wondering, once you have all that data in formats that can be transferred and can be manipulated, how then does that translate to an AI system? Would you know the sort of discussions or arrangements that are being taken to ensure that happens, and how soon?
So first of all, there's something that you asked, which I wanted to come to, is that we must collaborate with the private sector for us to be able to build these systems. And from where we sit, we're already doing it in some of the sectors. For example, in revenue, we're already building next generation revenue systems that are based on AI. In health, I think we have already defined what kind of modern health system we want for the citizens. And we're already doing that. And we have done that through the support and engagement of the private sector, because also some of these technologies are investment heavy, and we require support of this private sector.
Okay. Immaculate, let me get to you, because when all this happens, at the end of the day, there is a bit of exposure, especially those partnerships. There's a risk of who accesses that data, who manipulates it. And I hear over time, is it data sovereignty or something like that? What must then a government do to ensure that citizens' data is actually safe?
Thank you very much for that question. I think that is the reason why the Data Protection Act was enacted, to give us a framework and to give us an institution that can actually then ensure that this information is safe. That framework is adequate as it is, in terms of making sure, one, some of the requirements is that even as different government institutions or private sector are embarking on any form of what would say high risk. For instance, AI in health would be considered very high risk. They undertake what we call a data protection impact assessment, which really is like a risk analysis to be able to identify for you what are the possible risks, how are you going to mitigate it, are you sharing this information with a third party, and therefore they need to have third party agreements in terms of this. Will you be transferring this data outside of the country? And do those countries you're transferring this information to, do they have the necessary safeguards? Issues around, of course, what you've mentioned, data localization. Is it a requirement? Are you keeping a copy and things like, just to make sure it's safe? So the Data Protection Act is quite robust. And as an office, our work is to make sure that even as we embark on this journey of digitization and now this revolution of around artificial intelligence, we are securing people information. One of the direct clauses on artificial intelligence under the Data Protection Act is Section 35 about automated decision making. And the rights, and also what the Data Protection Act has done is brought the decision making to the customer. So that under that section, the customer, in this case, because our conversation today is around World Consumer Day, has a right to object. They have a right to object to their data being processed. So when they object to the data, it means that they have a reason to ask question. The other thing that they have options, they can actually opt out of that kind of a conversation. That gives the power to the customer. So the Act makes it quite robust in terms of making sure the data is safe. Two, something I would like to just emphasize.
But does that translate directly to the consumer?
Does it? The other part about that is the framework under the law. What then happens? The consumer can complain if they are affected in terms of if their data was used in a manner that they did not accept, if they objected to it, and their rights including compensation to the consumer. And we have had instances, not necessarily on artificial intelligence, where we've had complaints filed with our office on consumers and the data subject, and there has been compensation. To emphasize that, there has been penalties on people who have violated the Data Protection Act. The other thing I would like to say, because you asked the question about the government, is the issue around data sharing code. The data sharing code will help different government institutions, even as information is in different silos, they're able to share information across, and that is work in progress. It's one of the things that the Cabinet Secretary has set up, our Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Eliud Owalo, to actually make sure that that happens.
Okay.
The third thing that is very keen, that we are keen on in terms of making sure that this space of digitization is safe, is to actually do audits. As we speak, we are auditing over 40 institutions in terms of data, so that we are making sure they are not only doing audit, we are doing inspection to make sure that what you're saying you're doing with people's information is actually safe. So those safeguards in terms of audit, in terms of enforcement notices, in terms of penalties, are ways of making sure that even as we embark on the journey of digitization, people's information is safe.
Okay.
And you will be surprised that there's quite a bit of work and robustness as we compare 2 years ago to now. We are seeing action in people coming to ask to be assisted, to be given advisory, and the court has also has spoken to this matter of making sure that people are ensuring that people's data is secure and safe.
All right, let me come to you, Peter, because one of the greatest fears across the world is about the loss of jobs, and of course some of your interventions or innovations, for instance, the virtual assistant, it must have been able to do away with a bit of employees. But talk to us about that fear that this artificial intelligence is going to take away jobs, but also the opportunities that come in creating such kind of avenues.
Yeah, I think Sam, I think it's a great question, and I think and it is good to listen to ordinary people, because none of them actually spoke about loss of jobs. They actually talked about the opportunity they see in terms of the use cases for consumers, for society. There was a student there who talked about being enabled to do their assignment.
Right.
So I think if we come from a positive perspective, we will see huge opportunities in improving how we do things, the kind of productivity of it, the speed to market, how we take products to market, how we serve a large customer base and still be focusing on them individually. So if you start with the issues we are solving for society and for customers, and work backwards to how technology allows us to solve that, we are likely to actually come up with more innovations that allow us to grow faster. Actually, when you look at all the data on AI, that artificial intelligence will fast track the growth in the world. Then, of course, how do you deal with employees? So our own experience in Safaricom, we have been on this journey for a few years. We've created a big data team. We've created, as I said earlier, data scientists and also engineers. We have actually increased the numbers of IT professionals because you need a lot of, Agnes talked about compute power, development, software development, and so on and so forth. For you to do a lot of this, to work through the AI and what is required, you need more people. I think the most important thing we are asking our people to do is to learn to use AI, not necessarily to understand the technical elements of it, but how can AI help me? So, for example, we enable our our care center to be better in serving customers, to actually understand what they should be telling, the next thing they should be proposing. So if you know a customer is facing a challenge, you already have the information to the customer. So instead of having to deal with that issue 3 times, you actually deal with it right first time. Right. So customer experience is improved. Actually, we've not reduced numbers. We have actually increased IT numbers. What we have realized is customers want more personalized service. So it is about how do we push the boundaries in using AI in areas that benefits the organization, whilst enabling our employees to transition, because technology will continue to improve. When we were in school, probably we were not using as many computers as we are using today. Today, high school students are doing coding. So technology will improve. How do we use that technology to enable our employees to improve their skills and capabilities so that they are future ready? As a country, we know we are a hub for technology. We've proved it, and therefore we can actually house a lot of what is going on in terms of as a regional hub to continue to develop. So today, for example, on the M-Pesa ecosystem, we have 70,000 developers who don't work for Safaricom, but who actually enable businesses to connect and to integrate with M-Pesa. So we can use this as an opportunity to actually propel our country to continue to move forward. So for those who fear and actually don't learn how they should use AI, they will be affected. But for those who do, I think their jobs will just be different. They'll be more effective, but actually they will be...
So eventually there are certain roles that will be rendered redundant?
There are certain tasks. Yes. There are certain tasks that will need to be automated through the whole AI process. However, the job will be different. So it is enriched. It's a role that is enriched. People may have to move to different types of jobs, because even within the IT area, when we look at the digital IT team, we are telling them all this coding in an artificial intelligence world and with Gen AI and all that, it will become. Their job will change. Their skills are still important, and their training are still important, but their job will change. The tasks will change. And all those things that we do repetitively we talked about digitization and automation. Will become, can be replaced, but actually new jobs will be created.
Interesting. I'll get to all of you, but DG, talk to me about, because I saw you in Barcelona and you're able to witness, see a bit of the technology on display there. How do you appreciate the gap between Kenya and the world, but your thoughts specifically on ethics? Because when you hear students saying that we're using ChatGPT to do our assignments, so is it an enabler or is it a cheat route, or what is that, and how do we regulate that, especially when people have years to adapt to the new technologies, but also they have to learn?
Other than regulating the ICT sector, one of the key mandates of the Communication Authority is to protect the consumer, and secondly, to ensure fair play amongst different service providers. Going to your question, there's a huge divide between the developed nations and sub-Saharan Africa. The technology you witnessed in Barcelona is quite something. But coming to the regulatory aspect, I think it will be good as we formulate our laws to ensure that we do not allow bias. We ensure there's transparency and equality. Other than that, the aspect of using chatbots, it's good and bad. Maybe it might help the CBC parents who don't go home early. Their kids will be able to use the chatbots to study. But equally, some studies show that sometimes it generates children to be dependent on machines to work, other than just thinking proactively as a human being.
And it's interesting because now you take us to the next point of risks in use of AI. But before we get to that in depth, Moses, talk to us about the opportunities that are available, because I mean, for you able to work in that digital space, what are these opportunities that actually ordinary Kenyans can tap into, whether they have a history of understanding tech or not?
So for me, I think I'd like to maybe cite a quote from Jensen Huang, who's the CEO of a company called NVIDIA. NVIDIA creates the processors that run most of the major AI systems that we're using today. And he said something back in November last year that this generative AI moment, what we're seeing with ChatGPT, Google Gemini, and so forth, is going to be bigger than the internet itself. Let me say it again. He said that AI is going to be bigger than the internet itself. Now, when you think about the size of the internet, the impact of the internet, it touches everything as we know it. And when you think about the opportunities, there's so many possibilities in terms of what you can do. I think there's the agriculture. We've talked about medical diagnostics. I know a hospital, for instance, in Nairobi, where they've used AI to sort of enhance how they do their diagnostics, specifically in the imaging space. So there's a test that used to be done that I think used to cost 25,000. It now costs 600 shillings. And the best thing about it is if you have, say, a fracture, it's able to actually analyze the rest of the tissue around your body and might actually be able to detect another illness like cancer without you even knowing it, meaning that it's so powerful that it actually surfaces illnesses that you may not even be aware of. So we see a lot of opportunities in these spaces. I think, whether it's medical, agriculture, within the typical business environment, I see a lot of opportunities around empowering the workforce to do more things. In fact, I have an acronym I call FESBEC, which basically means that if you're able to use AI as an individual, as an organization, you can do things faster, things become easier, they become simpler, you become smarter, so to speak, because when you use AI, it actually allows you to do things you couldn't do yourself. It also allows you to create better outcomes in the work that you do. And most importantly, it also can be cheaper, all right? So we're seeing this sort of opportunity for young people to go out there, acquire the skills, become data scientists.
Right.
People are going to need to train the models that actually run AI systems. Today you have foundation models, running the AI platform. So you have to train it, you have to label the data, and then once all this is done, you get to the process where somebody can actually interrogate the data and get the outcome, whether it's an image, whether it's language-based, or even videos that we're seeing now are even possible through AI. But literally, there's almost a completely blank canvas in terms of what is possible, because the script, as it were, or the playbook is still being written. And it means that whether, pretty much in any kind of use case, you will find an AI opportunity. So I would say that the opportunities are massive.
Right.
And if you have creativity and the skill sets to do so, and the compute and the platforms that you can use to actually do so, then really there's really no limit to what is possible.
Right. Alice, earlier on in the story that we ran here to set the stage for this conversation, I hope you remember the Lisa show. And before getting interviewed by Lisa, there's a part that you have to sign, that you consent that they can use whatever information you're giving out there. So it looks like it's some form of entertainment, but essentially what they're doing, they're collecting feedback from you, which can be analyzed in the background. So as we move into this space that different consumers will be using, but also the data will be used by different AI machines across the sectors and across companies, what should we be thinking about that even the developers and the users must be aware of?
Oh, thank you so much. First, I want, before I respond to that, to just jump in quickly and maybe just bring our DG to spot. Sometimes when they go around collecting views about laws that need to be improved, it's very rare that they involve consumers. I mean, we are an organization, an umbrella organization of consumer organizations, about 10 of them, and this is the second umbrella organization for consumers in Kenya. And none of our members has been invited anywhere when these forums are going on. So as much as we are talking about legal framework, please don't preach to the choir. Don't talk to yourselves. Come out here, and we want to work with you. We are ready to work with you. We want to go to the grassroots. Like, for example, we have consumer desks, like Consumer Grassroots Association. You have 4 consumer desks at the counties where your staff can go and liaise. And we are collecting consumer complaints. Actually, AI is enabling us to collect consumer complaints. When they go to the platform, they are able to record the complaints, and we synthesize those complaints, and some of them fall under data privacy. So our concern is that sometimes we are so enticed. Some of the consumers don't know what is out there. And that's why I began by saying that whenever you come up with a product, whenever you come up with an innovation, please ensure that consumers know. Google, ensure that consumers know what products are made for, the kind of products that you have out there, and the consumer protection aspect that you've taken into consideration, and let it be plain, explained in a language that a consumer, the grassroots, can understand. Because when you talk of data, that government has a lot of data, I almost asked you, what sort of data is that? And how is that data collected? Do you have the consent of a consumer for you to utilize that data? And what if we realize that our data has been misused? What are we going to do? Where do we report? What are the redress mechanisms that we can get out of that? And there's a lot of misconception and misinformation out there because our understandings are very different. And so we need a robust system that is going to enable us to educate consumers. A day like today, I was expecting that when they come here, instead of dwelling much, I know they're talking a little bit about consumers, just a pinch of salt. But most of the things they're talking about is about the businesses and how the businesses are doing well. I expect that such a kind of a time is time to educate consumers. Tell them, you know what, we have this kind of law. And this, when you go to our Safaricom shop, when you go to the Google platform, this is how you are supposed to conduct yourself. And this is what we were expecting such a day. Remember, the theme for this year is fair AI, fair and responsible AI for consumers. Yes, I know businesses are now coming up and saying, we are doing 1, 2, 3, but tell us, how is it fair for consumers? Because we want to feel protected. We want the laws of Kenya under Article 46 of the Constitution to be really actualized. When you are talking about the Data Privacy Act, we want to know how is it operationalized and to what extent the penetration has taken place. These are some of the areas, these are some of the things that we wanted to know. During this day, we want to dwell much on educating consumers. Let them know their rights, their responsibilities, and the responsibilities of the duty bearers and the responsibilities of the developers. So those are the aspects and the gaps that we're experiencing as consumers, because we receive a lot of complaints. As I'm speaking right now, last year we received 2,772 complaints from consumers, from our consumer desks, and some of them have been taken to the duty bearers. They have been addressed, but some have not been addressed. So basically, what I want to bring on board is this: consumers are a great and a large number of consumers. They don't know their rights when it comes to the usage of these AI devices, AI platforms. So it's high time that as much as you are doing business, can you please set aside a portion of your resources and sensitize consumers? And us as consumer organizations, we are ready to work with you. A coalition of consumer organizations, 10 consumer organizations, can spread all over the country, and we will make your work quite easy for consumers to understand how to use the devices. So these are the limitations. Consumers don't have the literacy, they don't have the know-how. Most of them don't have the know-how, even though they're using those gadgets. And even sometimes when they use, they have misinformation.
Okay.
Yes.
And we will get back to that point. I think there are a few people that deserve right of reply. I'll give you that opportunity. But first, we want to take a short break here. You're still watching tonight. It is the Artificial Intelligence edition. It can have different meanings, but we have to have the conversation to seek understanding. We're back in a moment. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We're still watching tonight on this 14th day of March 2024, on the eve of the World Consumer Rights Day. And we're talking about artificial intelligence. There are some few pending questions, but also in this part, we'll be talking about the risks of artificial intelligence. And as we do that, let's take a look quickly at some of the concerns about the artificial intelligence that we need to be aware of. First is about the safety of artificial intelligence. There is what we are talking about, job displacement. There is loss of human control is a concern. Dependence on artificial intelligence. I think someone mentioned about that at some point. The other concern is about superintelligence. What if machines go beyond human capacity? What would happen? There's the question of inequality and accessibility, which may drive discrimination if especially you're not able to access or use. Then the other concerns about high-risk areas of artificial intelligence, for instance, the critical infrastructure, what would happen with all the data available, with all the artificial intelligence that may come, what happens to power, what happens to connectivity, what happens to security management, be it at the national level, even local level. There is health and medicine is another high-risk area for artificial intelligence. And of course, there are the fundamental rights that are also enshrined in the Constitution of Kenya that you need to be aware of. Those are some of the areas that we'll be focusing on in this segment. But first, let's listen to some Kenyans in Kassait County on how they think they use artificial intelligence in their work.
Kama ni kwa benki unaenda, if you are registered, pesa zako, you don't need to go to the bank. Your money comes to where you are.
Kabla ya kuwaste wakati kwenda kusoma kitabu ama kwenda mahali ama kama library huko Kassait Town kulipa hata 50 ndio uingie ndani usome ujue kitu fulani, unaingia kwa simu. Kwa sababu ya teknolojia
inatusaidia sana, kwa sababu na huu ukienda kama mahali ujui Hasa ukienda Kisumu, kama ujui Kisumu, unaingia kwa simu yako, unatoa hupa, unaangalia, inakuonyesha mahali nako matiko, mahali popote.
Kuna wadosi wengine hapa wameweka ma CCTV. Hata inatusaidia siku hizi, hata mtu akibeba box ama mzigo ya mtu hapa, tunauliza ilikuwa wapi na ilikuwa imeegezwa wapi. Sasa tunapata mtu bila alibeba, bila alichukua, anaenda anachukuliwa, anarudisha huo mzigo bila hata kuchoka.
Okay, interesting comments there. They've been smiling. I don't know what they have to say about that. But let me begin by giving an opportunity as a right of reply, because she raises questions about, yes, we can speak about the possibilities, but there are concerns that she raises that the consumers have not been involved, especially in the thinking on the legal and probably policy framework.
I don't think so, because I know the multi-sectoral committee appointed by C.S. Owalo has been going around the country to seek views and inputs of the people on the new regulations. Secondly, they have invited several stakeholders to also provide the way they see the ICT climate changing. Thirdly, all stakeholders will have an opportunity. Parliament, when the Parliament gets the bill, stakeholders will be invited. Parliament will invite anyone who has anything to say about the bill to give their views. And I also like to say, see also in addressing issues concerning consumers, we have a forum that goes around counties called Kikao Kiku, where we inform stakeholders of their rights to services and anything they can complain about. We also have a portal where they can raise their complaints.
And they're aware about this?
They're aware about that. And another thing is we also enforce standards to those who don't comply in giving the right service. So we either penalize them or reprimand them. So we do all that. And that's just to protect the consumer.
Okay. CEO Ndegwa, how about, because she says that the focus may actually be about business. Of course, you owe it to your shareholders, but what do you owe to the consumers?
Yeah, I know that just before the break, you asked a question about are we going to lose jobs? And I said, when you look at our care center, we have not actually reduced numbers because we want to serve our customers better. Yeah. We believe that AI enables us to offer better products. Right. You know, I talked about some of the areas that we are actually applying AI that actually are more beneficial to customers, more than we can actually be able to do today. So we are committed. You know, our brand promise is about simple, transparent, and honest. I believe that AI allows us to be more, to actually fulfill that commitment in a way that we could not be able to do in the past. So I'll give you two examples. On the fraud issue, it's very difficult to understand in a very complex ecosystem when with a lot of transactions. But using data and AI, we can actually be able to pinpoint those customers that might be predisposed to fraud. Those SIM cards which may have been procured through fake IDs or actually irregularly procured, or where we see irregular transactions that may affect customers in the wrong way. And actually the virtual assistants and using those kind of frameworks allows us to actually serve customers better and to serve them better first time, rather than actually being able to always access a human being. So from a customer perspective, I feel that actually this allows us to actually serve and fulfill the promise that we have made to our customers. So, but I do hear the actual concern. I think what I'm hearing even from the feedback that we got from ordinary customers is, do we trust the technology? Do we trust the ecosystem? Is my data safe? Someone was talking about CCTV. So we need to demystify what this whole new technology is to ordinary people, and actually start using very ordinary terms about this is the benefit that you get by us using that. But I think the whole thing about customer experience and how we serve customers won't go away. Even in the day when the AI is not there, you still have to deal with it. It's just that if you use AI to enable you deliver better customer experience, that's good. But we need to understand the downside. And currently we have to have the internal governance to understand the downside and especially misuse.
Okay.
So I do hear the concerns, but I think we should see the elements that allow us to serve our customers better.
All right, and for you, Agnes, let me give you the opportunity also to explain, because she also mentioned a bit of what you've been doing. What do you put in place to ensure that the customer's data is safe, not subject of manipulation, but also letting them know about their rights?
Okay, just first off the bat, Google does not use user data to train its AI or for any other purpose without express consent. Since Google was founded 25 years ago, we've had 3 core values that have never changed. Respect each other, me, my colleagues, respect the opportunity, which is what we are doing here, and then respect the user. Respect the user means even if the user gives you consent, the consent is time-bound. It's for a very, very specific reason that you have told the user, and you have also told the user exactly what data. At that point, the consumer gives you consent or not. So we find some of our AI training and include also, which includes building other products, may come from user data, but you'll be surprised. Most of the training data we use is publicly available data of the internet. Whatever is there publicly available. Okay. We use a lot of that data. The quantities are immeasurable. Every day, billions and billions of new data is introduced that's public onto the internet. A lot of the time, we use that data to train the AI, not user data.
Okay. All right. Now, let's get deeper to the questions about the concerns that may come. And Immaculate, I remember once upon a time, I think it was last year, there was a heated conversation in this country about WorldCoin and how Kenyans were appearing at the KICC to have their iris details collected. And after that, there were a lot of complaints that macho inauma, it's itchy, we can't see properly. What was that? And how do we make sure that such a spectacle does not occur, probably because of lack of information or lack of regulation on the side of government?
I thought you'd ask that question. But without going to the merits and demerits of the case, because it's an ongoing conversation, I'll say the following on that. One is that we are in an era where we do not know what the future holds. Every day, people wake up and we have young people, they are experimenting, they want to see products, they want to address concerns. In this case, what we understood is they're addressing issues around deep fakes and making sure you're getting real people. So it's not, I just need us to be prepared through regulatory framework, which the CS has said has put in place. In terms of just seeing what is happening around the world. 2, you can't over-regulate. You can only have general principles. And and that is always the pushback that is there in terms of from a data privacy protection perspective vis-a-vis innovation. There will always be that friction. You are asking too much information, you're limiting our success, and yet we want to see what happens. So the best way of addressing this conflict is to make sure that we as a regulator are on top of things addressing the concern. 3, it's some of these emerging issues, AI, cryptocurrency, require a regulatory framework that is multifaceted. It cannot be the responsibility of the Data Protection Commission only. In this case, we believe that a sandbox where different regulators, CA and others who are not here, probably even ICTA and others, have an opportunity to have a sandbox where developers have an opportunity to pilot some of the great innovations they have. And then during that, they're able to engage stakeholders, able to see what works and what does not work. A sandbox will help this country in terms of we don't get surprised when we get any type of innovation that is brought, because innovations will come today, tomorrow, the next day. 3, and finally, what I would want to say, and it has been mentioned, in Africa, we are lagging behind in terms of AI models. It's a challenge to us to begin thinking on how we can, AI is an equalizer, how we can make sure we are modeling on Africa's solution to make Africa be on the table and to make Africa decision when it comes to AI. I think I'll stop there.
What do we need to do?
What we need to do is actually, and some were said by my fellow panelists, train, skilling. Skilling is important because we may not have the necessary skill. 2 is the opportunity and resourcing. Because some of this resourcing, when I say let us empower our startups, let us work with our startups so that they have opportunity to actually then create that environment to see how AI can take us in terms of Africa. And regulations will never, ever address bad manners, for sure. I think it is the thing around AI and privacy. It's a call to order. If you want to use my information, please can you ask me? Can you inform me what it is for? And can you allow me to consent? That is called manners. Thank you, please, may I? I'll end there, thank you.
That's an interesting point that you raised there, because I mean it's happening all over, including parents who have children. Their requests to utilize data of their children in schools. But Moses, talk to me about, because there's that concern about inequality and accessibility. And if you look at how technology has moved in this country, it usually leaves a certain section of the population behind. Probably those that are older, but now it's even more, especially when it comes to where are you in the country, your physical location. Are you near an urban center or in the rural area? So how can we change the conversation in a faster manner to ensure that every person, wherever they are, they have a fair chance of not being left behind?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. You know, we do have a big issue around disparities between, for instance, if you're based in Nairobi or Mombasa, your access to the internet, your access to technology, the affordability of some of these things are much better than, let's say, in a typical rural or underserved area of the country. I think it's commendable to see the likes of Safaricom and what they've done to invest in these areas. I know also CA has programs to bridge the gap in terms of access and infrastructure that actually creates more capabilities. And of course, we've seen pricing also become quite competitive. You know, we have devices that are also very cost effective today, allowing even those who are underserved and, you know, at the bottom of the pyramid being able to actually access these devices. I think really the great leveler is actually a combination today of the internet and AI. Because remember, on one hand, the internet gives you access to unlimited information. I always like to say that when I was in university, which was many years ago, you know, my information was in the library, and I would go there to get a book and find the person who had the book to do the assignment. Today you go into Google and you search and you get an answer. You go into ChatGPT, you ask a question, you get an answer. So I think a lot of people who may be underserved can use both the internet and AI to act as almost a leveler of sorts to empower them and give them not just information, but even the skill sets to actually then close that gap. But again, going back to the initiatives that the likes of Safaricom and the Communications Authority and also the government of Kenya have taken to also sort of bridge that and allow those who are underserved and underprivileged in terms of getting, access to technology and platforms to really strengthen that. And I think also, as somebody who's worked in this space for many, many years, Kenya is a bit of an outlier because when it comes to technology adoption, every company I've worked in, all the startups I've been involved in, Kenya just seems to be one of the most progressive markets across the continent, both in terms of the attitude of the people, the culture of the people, the behavior around technology, but also I think the supporting mechanisms that the government has put in place to allow people to really go there. And of course, look at our CBC and how it's using technology to enhance education for our young learners. So there are all these different areas, and I think we are seeing a lot of potential, and AI is only going to make it better.
Okay. Still on that point, because you talk about you once used a library, now you can access information from different sources. What do we do with dependence on AI? Because it is a possibility that someone has been given an assignment, instead of looking at credible sources and citation, they want to approach a system and do the homework for them.
It kind of reminds me of the instance I remember many years ago when I was doing mathematics in high school. You were not allowed to carry a calculator. And today, in fact, we have those books where you do the sines and the cosines and that sort of thing. So we find a scenario today where if you don't understand the subject matter at a fundamental level, you will be struggling even to use the AI to get the right answer. In fact, there's a whole area in AI that we call prompt engineering, which basically means if you don't ask the right question in the right way, then the AI will also give you a faulty answer. In fact, there's something that we call hallucinations, which is where the AI even fabricates outcomes that don't exist. So these things are not perfect. They're not designed to be perfect yet. But we're going to move to an area that we call now AI agents, which is going to be the next iteration of what we're seeing today, above and beyond the chatbots, where it's going to be much more accurate, much more intelligent, much more capable. But the best analogy I can think of is that if you think about the global competitive situation we're in as Kenya, as Africa, and the rest of the world, and I love the fact that was mentioned here that we need to build our own models. We need to train our own data. And the good thing is, of course, we have companies like Google and others who are building platforms where we can put our first-party data and our content using some of their systems. We have a proliferation of data centers in Nairobi right now. I don't know if anyone is aware, but there's one, for instance, that I think they've invested $50 million. So there's going to be an opportunity to have these localized. And I believe a lot of the big companies like Google and so forth will bring those locally. But in terms of competitiveness and assignments, using the analogy I gave you earlier, where you used to not be able to use a calculator, and now if you bring one, they don't mind because you have to understand the subject matter. I feel like at a global level, it's almost going to be like that famous saying, you don't go to a gunfight with a sword, right? If the whole world is elevating their game, and they're going to be competing using these tools to enhance productivity, enhance and augment their ability to deliver good work in better ways, then we too must also level up and find ways to be competitive by using the same tools and also building our own localized versions of the same.
Okay. Stanley, what would be your take in ensuring that there's equality in accessing this? Because if you're studying an IT-related course, you're at a better place of getting the skill. But how do you circulate it so that the users, whether they are trained or not, they're at a better place of adopting this technology?
All right. First of all, allow me to piggyback on the discussion on the jobs just a little bit and say that in addition to the perspectives shared in terms of AI helping to solve the gap for human capital and releasing human beings to do more client-facing and non-repetitive tasks, we have probably another two levels that, as a government, we're looking at when it comes to AI and jobs. I know a number of us have heard about this song called Taptengele, which has been trending. And this is an ambitious program by His Excellency the President to build digital hubs across the country.
Right.
And I want to confirm, first of all, that it is true. Unafinya computer, na dola inaingia kwa mfuko. A number of young people are already earning significant amounts per month. The second thing I want to confirm and inform, our viewers is that majority of the jobs that we are rolling out through these digital hubs are actually AI jobs. We're training our young people to train models, and they're working for AI companies across the globe. And therefore, you know, even from the issues raised around awareness for the consumers, we are saying these opportunities are already there with us, and we are going to continue to empower people. The other level is maybe just what my panelists has talked about around opportunities for development. Already Kenya has been, you know, established as a tech hub, and we have a lot of startups that are coming out of Kenya. Now, this technology then enables us to, cascade that and scale this up for us to be able to address some of our social challenges. Quickly coming back to your question, I think the first thing to do for us to ensure equality and equity is first to address the issue of digital divide. Our internet penetration in the country is just about 40% or thereabout. So that tells you that we have almost 50% or more of our population who do not have access to fixed internet broadband. While mobile penetration has been increasing, we need to do a bit of work to upscale this. And this is why, you know, in collaboration with other agencies, including Communication Authority and energy and other agencies in the energy sector, we're now exploring how to cascade this and bring internet connectivity to the home states. The other thing that we must do is then to create awareness and provide platforms for people to learn these technologies and acquire these skills.
Okay.
We already have certain platforms that the government has already established. At the ICT Authority, we have what we call a Smart Academy, where you can go in, learn about these kind of technologies, learn about how to stay safe online, learn basic skills of how to work online,
okay,
and so on and so forth. We also have, of course, the Jitume program that is also helping us to accelerate digital skills training. So,
but this is specifically for younger people?
No, the Smart Academy has been set up actually to train all our citizens. So we have, you know, programs that are running from foundational digital skills to advanced digital skills that caters for the entire population. Okay. We've already established a mechanism to collaborate with the TVET institutions so that then it is a hybrid model of delivery. You can do it online, or you can go to the TVET and university institutions for you to be able to be educated.
All right, I want us to end up. And Alice, so then from here, where do we go to ensure that it is safer, it is responsible, especially for consumers, and ensuring that we are not left behind by the advancement in technology?
Thank you so much. I want to thank my colleagues here. And indeed, they are doing a great job. Even when I'm pinching them a little bit, it's still okay. Talking about the World Consumer Rights Day that we want to mark tomorrow, first I want you to allow me appreciate our Deputy President, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua. In December, he did us proud because he came to launch a World Consumers Congress that took place in Kenya. It takes place every 4 years. So, meaning that the presidency appreciates the work of consumers and the protection of consumers. And I want to throw back to him as the Deputy President and those of you who are representing government here. I believe when you be having your meetings, please tell him that we need a section or a consumer protection unit in government, so that when we are talking about consumer protection, we cannot be crying now from outside, but we will be talking from inside. So we look forward to that we can have also the parties, political parties are supported. Why can't consumer protection also be supported by the Exchequer? So those are are the areas I wanted to raise, because it's important for consumers to know that they are very key and their rights should be respected. And tomorrow is a very important day. And I think even if I'm given 10 more minutes, that's our day. I can still continue talking. So what we need to do going forward, we will, and of course, there are consumer rights and consumer responsibilities. Right. So on our part, we will encourage consumers to get to understand, get to know the devices they are using, the platforms they are entering into, learn to ask the questions why, how, and learn to know the sources of the information and where their data will be taken. So we cannot be all over the country to protect each and every consumer, but we want to continue empowering consumers in order to protect themselves. Okay. We want to work closely with sector leaders to ensure that that happens. And we also want consumers to learn to know, please, when you are coming up with a product, teach consumers, educate consumers, sensitize consumers to know, to detect a violation, so that they can also come to report those violations in respective offices and even your consumer protection unit that is within your organization or your department.
Oh, all right. So I have 3 opportunities for closing. Let me begin with you, Agnes. So one of the key issues that people have also been subjected to because of the innovations that come is deepfakes, or you find some information. Recently, we saw the president speaking in French, and we have seen news anchors, including the one speaking to you right now, advertising and diabetes drug. And of course, this is not true, but you find it on social media. What are some of these skills that consumers can be aware of to also authenticate? Because once such kind of information gets out there, people start believing it.
Indeed, that's one of the major risks of this technology. It's also a major risk, just like any other new technology that comes up. There is use of technology for good, and then there are those who take it and do bad things with it. Mm-hmm. And that's where a regulatory environment, where the actual consequences, major consequences for misusing technology comes in. I'm sure Immaculate can tell you what you can do with those people who are advertising with your image. She already has a law, it's in place, she has a mechanism, she has a process. And so it's about ensuring that there are consequences for some of that misbehavior. Right. And we'll see a lot of it. We will see misinformation around. We've seen misinformation around elections. We've seen misinformation around when we have health crisis. We have seen misinformation around, like I think this year we've got more elections globally than ever before. Mm-hmm. So we're going to see a lot of the technology that has been built for good go rogue or being used for rogue purposes, between regulation and also moderation by platform providers that ensures that we are extremely responsible. And anytime we see something or it's reported, we are quick to investigate and take it down. I think that's a responsibility as we build these technologies that we then have to our consumers who are using it.
Okay. And for you, Peter, your thoughts about that area of misinformation and disinformation that can actually be abused and cause people to make decisions that they shouldn't?
Yeah. So yeah, it's a great question, and I think whilst and I know that we've spoken a lot, and my colleagues have also spoken a lot about the opportunity, is to understand the downside. And as a private sector player who is a large, who has a large and controls a large ecosystem, we are a big data processor as an organization, and we have a responsibility to also help police the ecosystem, because we influence a lot of what goes on. We also have a very big role in terms of, because we reach 40 million customers every every month. On the GSM side, we reach 32 million customers on the M-Pesa side. So we have a responsibility and an opportunity to actually use our ecosystem to actually educate customers. We have more than 300,000 agents. So I think we need to utilize the infrastructure and actually the capacity that we have, but also start to seek responsibility, especially starting with how we govern, how we use data, what we tell, what we do with customers. So there are so many elements we have developed internally that we don't use externally, because we want to make sure they are mature enough for us to deploy. So it's about responsibility, but it's also about education and about using. Going beyond the commercial aspects and talking about we talk about purpose of transforming lives. So it's using AI for good, but actually educating customers as part of our role in society.
Okay, so we just remained with one opportunity, and that we got to DG. But before then, let's take a look at the feedback that Kenyans have shared with us at Citizen TV Kenya at Sam Gituku. The hashtag to use is tonight. Sir Nixon Dugira is saying that I too believe that AI is a tool to amplify human creativity and ingenuity too. AI is good to change the world more than anything in the history of humanity, more than electricity. All right. Sawa is saying that let's focus on empowering Kenyan youth in AI by fostering a supportive environment and infrastructure rather than solely emphasizing regulation. Safaricom and CA could lead the way. Okay. Roles assigned. Tere Seos, you say that data is at the center of AI as a public good, unlocking the power of M-Pesa's transactional data through responsible and secure democratization can fuel innovation, improve credit access, and foster a more inclusive financial landscape. I don't know what that says about a program going on about the Hustler Fund. Okelo Mwalimu is saying that can the panelists comment on how developers of various apps which are critical in AI penetration can be protected against exploitation by multi-billion companies? Secondly, what dangers does AI portend other than employment, and how can this be mitigated? That's a question. I don't know who wants to take it. Maybe Moses. Well, that's it. So, who wants to respond to that question? Moses, Stanley, who wants to take it? The last one.
I can take the question.
Yep.
Indeed, that is one of the risks that we face with the AI technologies, because then people who are looking for certain informations can be able to do what we call data scrapping across different websites and different applications. And this then brings the issue of copyright and IP for people who have already done and invested their resources in developing those systems. So that can be addressed by making sure that we have regulations that push for transparency from the way AI models are built to how they are trained and to how they are applied. Because if you have a situation where it is truly transparent, then you'll be able to provide your source of data for building the models, for training the models, and the intended application.
Okay.
Let me close by saying that, if you allow me quickly, that the digital age has provided an opportunity for all of us to thrive. And I think it's upon us to use this opportunity that technology is providing to see how technology is going to continue to uplift and improve human experiences, even as we address human challenges. Allow me to invite our viewers to join us in taking the conversation forward in our Africa Connected Summit coming up in April 21st to 25th here in Nairobi. We're going to be discussing how AI is going to drive digitization for Africa, among other topics on future-proofing Africa. Thank you very much.
I'll send you the bill. So DJ, as we close, a lot of issues have been raised, especially on the risk factors and the misinformation, the deepfakes that we find. I don't know what CA does with that, bearing in mind that some of this you'll be finding them on different social media platforms, but then they are published in Kenya. I mean, does your regulation extend to that extent, but also what would be your role in that space?
Basically, we work mainly with the providers of such networks. And I'll tell you for a fact, we help regulate that field. And sometimes we even pull down. We ask if something is too unethical, we request that it be pulled out of the net. Yeah.
Okay. And as part of your closing remarks, then, where do we head as a country in all this technology?
AI is something that, and quantum computing are the future of the country. And as a matter of fact, most people must adopt to these technologies so that we move forward.
Okay. All right. I have to thank you all for making time for us. Moses Kemibaro, CEO .Savi Kenya, Immaculate Kassait, the Data Commissioner, Peter Ndegwa, the CEO, Safaricom PLC, Director General at Communications Authority of Kenya, David Mugonyi, Agnes Gadeya from Google, Country Director East Africa, as well as Stanley Kamangoya from ICT Authority, and Alice Kemunto, the Executive Director, Consumer Grassroots Association. Thank you so much for making time for us of this conversation, and I hope we leave you better than we started on the understanding of artificial intelligence, the opportunities available there, the risks, but also what you need to do, because as they say, the future looks like it's artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, not artificially intelligent. Artificial intelligence. My name is Sam Gituku. See you again some other time. Good night. Goodbye.